You ever move into a place that just feels wrong? Not haunted exactly, just heavy. Like the walls remember someone else's life. My name doesn't matter. Not anymore. What matters is that 3 years ago, I rented an apartment I never should have touched. There was nothing strange about it at first. Cheap rent, quiet neighbors, a landlord who never asked questions. But sometimes, when you inherit a space, you inherit its secrets too. I didn't know that when I moved in. I didn't know about the thing waiting for me in the basement. They called it Mr. Mayhem. And if you're listening to this, please don't make the same mistake I did. I got my first real job straight out of college. It wasn't glamorous data entry, long hours, but it paid enough for rent. The only problem was that I had to find a new place fast. A friend of a friend connected me with a landlord who just had a tenant evicted for unpaid rent. The apartment wasn't even listed yet. When I moved in, I barely noticed the details. I just dragged in a bed, my old desktop, and left 2 of the 3 rooms empty. I told myself I'd fill them once I was sure the job would last. It did. Years passed, and the place slowly became home. 3 years later, while trying to clear space for some new furniture, I remembered something the landlord once mentioned: storage space in the basement. I'd never used it, never even seen it. He said the previous tenant might have left some junk there and gave me the key. The basement smelled like rust and damp concrete. My flashlight got dust dancing in the air, and there in the far corner stood something that looked like a person, a crash test dummy, white life-size with a faded yellow torso and a black marker scribble on the back of its head, Mr. Mayhem. Its plastic grin was cracked eyes, nothing more than black dots. It looked old, scuffed, worn down, and somehow tired. I called the landlord about it, and he laughed. Oh yeah, he said that belonged to the last tenant, some kind of mascot. He worked at an auto testing facility, brought that dummy home when they upgraded the models. Used to dress it up for parties. I almost left it there. But Halloween was coming up, and I thought, why not use it as decoration? I threw a pirate costume on it and propped it by the front door for my small pre-party. About 18 of us showed up, cheap costumes, loud music, too much punch. Everyone loved Mr. Mayhem. Something about human-shaped figures always creeps people out, just enough to make them laugh. By midnight, we all headed to a club downtown. I was drunk enough to forget everything except the bass thumping through my chest. When I came home, the door was already unlocked. I could have sworn I'd locked it. Nothing seemed stolen, so I shrugged it off and collapsed into bed without checking anything else. I didn't notice the candy bowl spilled across the carpet. I didn't notice that Mr. Mayhem was gone. The next morning, I saw the empty space by the door. Gone. I texted everyone from the party, thinking it was a prank. Nobody had touched it. For a few days, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been inside my apartment. I changed the locks on Monday. That Friday, I came home from work in the rain. As I crossed the parking lot, something made me stop. That strange, heavy instinct that tells you something's watching. I looked up. Mr. Mayhem stood on the roof, perfectly still, head tilted slightly down, looking straight at me. Someone must have dragged it up there. Some prank. That had to be it. I started toward the stairwell, shielding myself from the rain with a folder. Something slammed into the pavement, loud enough to echo through my bones. The dummy lay sprawled in front of me, limbs bent at impossible angles, grin still frozen in place. If it had fallen 2 feet closer, I would have been dead. Heart racing, I dragged it back down to the basement, shoved it onto an old sofa, and locked the padlock. I told myself I'd throw it away soon. That night I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that smile. The next morning, I started cleaning just to calm down. When I moved the fridge, a piece of yellowed paper fluttered loose and landed at my feet. It was a sticky note, faint and smudged maybe from years ago. It said, "Don't let it out." I stared at those words for minutes. The handwriting looked shaky, panicked. I told myself it was some stupid inside joke from the last tenant. But it gnawed at me. What did it mean? What was it? I decided to get rid of the thing once and for all. Burning it seemed unsafe. Selling it felt wrong. So I planned to cut it up and dump it in the river. That night, I packed tool saw, duct tape, hammer, garbage bags, and dragged Mr. Mayhem into my car trunk. It looked disturbingly human in the glow of the taillights. For a moment, I almost apologized to it before closing the trunk. Driving through the empty streets, I kept thinking I heard thumps from the back. Every time I turned the radio down, there was nothing. Just silence and my own pulse. At the riverbank, under the weak glow of the headlights, I opened the trunk. It just lay there, smiling. I dragged it onto the muddy ground, raised the hammer, and started with the joints. Plastic cracked under each blow, but the sound changed, less hollow, heavier. When I hit the face, the nose buckled inward. Pieces of paint chipped away. Beneath the plastic shell, something pale showed through. I thought it was foam padding, until I saw the tooth, a real one. I staggered back as the face split open, revealing dry, shriveled flesh pressed against the inside. A mummified man sealed inside the dummy's casing. I couldn't breathe. I dropped the hammer, backed away, muttering nonsense to myself. I had to call the police. I had to tell someone. But before I could reach my phone, something slammed into the side of my head. Darkness. I woke up cramped, disoriented. The air was stale. I couldn't move much. Then I realized I was in the trunk. The car was moving. My head throbbed. I tried to feel for my phone, but it wasn't there. I could hear faint music through the speakers. Whoever was driving didn't speak. When the car stopped, I waited. The driver's door opened. Footsteps echoed, then faded. I forced my way through the back seat and crawled into the front. We were inside some kind of warehouse or storage facility, dark, huge, silent. I found my phone on the passenger seat, trembling so hard I could barely dial. "I've been kidnapped," I whispered. "I don't know where I am." Glass shattered beside me. Something grabbed my shoulder and yanked me through the window. I hit the cold floor hard. My phone skittered away, crushed beneath a white plastic foot. I looked up. It was Mr. Mayhem, but the grin had changed, wider, sharper. I ran, through hallways filled with broken machinery and collapsed beams. My footsteps echoed alongside heavier plastic ones. Every sound bounced off the walls. I burst into a side room and froze. Dozens of crash test dummies stood shoulder to shoulder, all facing the same direction. Every one of them had names scrawled across the back of their heads. Miss Waters, Mr. Cullen, Mr. Mayhew. Rows and rows of them. Some were hollow shells. Others weren't. I pushed through, praying to find an exit. Somewhere behind me, glass scraped against the floor. A dragging sound. Then one of the dummies turned its head. Its left hand was missing. Its face human. Gray, sunken eyes. A mouth that moved without sound. Mr. Mayhem. It lunged. A jagged piece of glass slashed past my jacket. I shoved it aside, barreled through the lifeless figures, and stumbled into another room. Chains hung from the ceiling. A large industrial winch sat in the middle of the floor. I backed away, but Mr. Mayhem followed, limping, twitching, that grin still frozen. I grabbed the chain, praying it would hold. When it got close enough, I pulled the lever. The hook shot upward, piercing its jaw. It screamed metallic, broken. I kept pulling, lifting it higher and higher, until it hung 15 feet above the ground, limbs jerking like a puppet. Then it stopped moving. Even motionless, I felt it watching me. When I stumbled outside, the night was already fading. I called the police from my shattered phone, trying to explain what had happened. They didn't believe a word. When they searched the warehouse, they found 3 sealed dummies, each containing the remains of factory workers who'd gone missing decades ago. They told me the case was closed. No suspects. No further questions. I moved out a week later. 2 years passed. I still think about it, about that smile hanging above me in the dark. A few months ago, I read an article about a break-in at the county evidence locker. 3 pieces of evidence missing. 1 injured officer. Witnesses described the intruders as bald, pale, wearing plain white clothing. 2 men. 1 woman. If I had to guess, I'd say there's not much time before we start seeing more of them. Because somewhere out there, there's an empty shell waiting. One with my name written on the back. And maybe, just maybe, it's already found me. The police said it was over. They told me to forget to move on, that whatever I saw that night was just shock and trauma. But the truth is, I still hear it sometimes. That hollow creak of plastic joints when the house goes quiet. The faint scrape on the floor just outside my door. I keep the lights on now. I barely sleep. Because I know the moment I close my eyes, I'll see that grin again. They said they found 3 dummies in the warehouse, but they never said what happened to the 4th. And lately, I've been noticing something new, small black letters appearing on the back of my mirror. Mr. Mayhem. Maybe they were right. Maybe it is over. Or maybe I'm just next.